Okay, we're going to get this special city council meeting called to order. Monday, March 29th, 5:30. Roll call.
David Paradise.
Nicole Andreeff.
Kirby Moyna.
Tom Marslick.
Sam Solars.
Jessica Bonniwell.
Jared Vogie.
Wayne McCormick.
Need an approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second.
Any further discussion on the agenda? David?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
All vote yes. Tom?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. On to business. Randy sanitation contract amendment.
Did you guys have any questions? Deb Gotts is here from Randy's if you did. Otherwise, we would just need a motion to approve it if you're good with it.
The common concern that I've had and other council members have had brought to them as well, there's just kind of a comfortability level that some residents are having in town with Randy's taking over the billing instead of the city doing it. I'm just worried of some pushback from people in town if we just switch like this to Randy's taking the billing. I know that I'd like the staff not to have the extra hours. I know you've said it's anywhere from 5 to 15 hours in a given week sometimes, depending on the amount of calls that the deputy clerk position will have to take in these. So Randy's taking over the billing would save the city some money, but there is some concerns with some people of potentially just saying that they were going to refuse paying for garbage services to Randy's and then just deal with the consequences later on if the city wasn't going to keep doing the billing. So that's just kind of the negative sides of what some people have been saying. Based on some of that, I'd kind of like to see the city, at least for the next few years, stick out doing the billing, but that's just kind of my thoughts on it.
Well, I would hedge a comment to say if the only issue is they don't like being billed by Randy's versus the cities, then we all need to become adults and pull our pants up and do the right thing here. We're trying to save the city some money, and for Randy's doing the billing saves us at least 5 hours of billing time. So I'm not sure I think that's a legitimate reason. You know, I drove through all the neighborhoods last Tuesday, and I looked at all the trash cans that were piled this high over the top of the can with the lid down, and people are complaining about Randy's. Randy's is picking all that stuff up. I watched them, So I think, ultimately Randy's is doing a good job in my opinion. So the couple of people that might be complaining, I'm not sure that that's a reason for us to go back to the city billing for the garbage.
Jess, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, we could certainly keep the billing. We still have it in our system. It's still there. It wouldn't be an issue. It's just being the middleman for the customer service is difficult because you're, hearing it from the resident, and there's nothing that I can do about it. So then I have to contact Randy's, and then they have to contact me, and then I have to contact the customer back. It's just kind of a endless kind of cycle like that, which would be a positive for them taking over the billing, but, up to you guys.
I think when it comes to the billing, I think it's more of going from a 1 month to month to a 3 months, and I think that's what the issue is, more than Randy's taking over billing over the city. So I think my question to Randy's is that a possibility to go month to month, at least initially, to secure that everybody's paying on time and all that stuff, and we got the right billing, to then look at then paying the full 3 months in advance, like every other, customer does in the state of Minnesota.
It's on. Should be.
On?
Yep.
Okay, can I take this?
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to address any issues we might have. We certainly are ready to, yes, they will have to pay their arrears bill with the city, and then we bill in advance. We are willing to and are ready to work with anybody who needs to have a payment arrangement this first couple times. If they need to pay half of it now, a month now, we're certainly willing to work with that. We are the experts in customer service. We have 9 people there to answer the phone. So I feel real comfortable that I think they're going to get great service, direct service. We'll be able to look up the bill, work with them closely. We have online payment, and that makes it a lot easier too. So in transferring the records from what Jess and I have been working on, reconciling cart size and such, we feel really comfortable on, I think we only had a handful of differences that we had to, figure out where we're at. So I think our records are real good, and so I feel comfortable that the transition will be really smooth. But yeah, it is pay for 3 months in advance. Billing is an expense, so if that addresses that question.
So if anybody's having a hard time, let's say this transition, starts next month, and somebody has a hard time initially paying that 3 months in advance, that's something that they can definitely work with?
Oh, yeah. I would encourage them to give us a call. We just need to know where they're at.
Yeah.
We have a accounts receivable department, probably 5 or 6 people in there. They'll make their arrangements. We have the ability to make the notes, work with them. Not an issue at all. We do it all the time. And this, speaking of this, I think Deb Bolter had mentioned it earlier. We've done this type of transition many times in different cities. So this isn't the first. It's an adjustment.
It's a change.
It's
and
not,
people
yeah,
don't always
it's-
like change,
Those are pretty much the 2 questions that I got the most from people was what David just said and what Kirby just said. Is the billing and the whole transition of the city not taking over it anymore and the whole 3 months in advance and stuff. So, as long as it's, they understand, and that's good to know with the whole working on the bill stuff. 'Cause I know
Sure.
there's for people that are, struggling, and then they're just worried that their trash isn't going to be picked up or they're going to be penalized for it, so.
Right. Nope, we can encourage them to call the direct line, ask for myself, Matt. I don't think they'll need to, though. That's exactly what that department does, is work with payments.
No, one other question I got was, in the past, you guys have had the little stickers where people have prepaid. Are we still using that moving forward, or not? And if not, is there going to be reimbursement for those that still have some?
Oh, okay. They actually bought them from the city.
Okay.
So you have people that bought stickers from us and they haven't used them all yet?
Yeah, they still have some, and they're just wondering is Randy's going to take those back, or they can still be used, or how's that going to be handled?
If you don't mind, we would encourage them to bring them back to the city, and then I would credit the city for them.
We've got a number of them at the city too that haven't been used, so maybe
Sure.
we can have them bring them back and get a hold of you and
Yep.
work that out.
Take them all back and refund for those, the value.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Jess, like I said, one of my concerns was that I've actually had people say that they're just going to, if they take over billing, they'll just flat out refuse to pay their stuff. How does that go if people don't pay their garbage bill? Do they just not get garbage service? Do their cans get picked up? Does it get put on their property taxes later on? Just kind of how that all works. And could you kind of explain the city ordinance on garbage collection too, just for people that may not know it?
Oh, you could have warned me.
I don't know that we can assess it as if we're no longer billing it. We'll assess water and sewer, but I don't know that we can assess garbage because we will no longer be the person billing it.
We can. I've talked to Mary Tejan's office about this
Okay.
because it is part of the contract that they do want to assess for that service, but we do have to change our ordinance a little bit to allow us to do that. But yes, we can do that. And as far as the ordinance right now, what do you, that's kind of a broad question, what exactly?
What's just kind of the general, what was the ordinance, just in layman's terms, kind of say that if the city signs a contract that everyone's obligated to?
Yes, so all the residents have to use the city, whoever the city has a contract with, they have to use that as their hauler. And they can't opt out of garbage, and if they do not pay, it will get assessed to their property taxes.
So the only thing changing, just for some of the people that may be a little weary about it, the only thing changing is who's collecting and when it's being collected.
The money, correct.
Other than that, their bill is actually going down, from what I've been told, by anywhere from 8 to 10 or 15 cents or something like that a month.
Correct.
Other than that, it's just you get billed 3 months in advance and then move from there.
Correct.
And you don't have to go to City Hall to buy extra garbage stickers anymore.
They just do it right on the truck. They just type on their computer, right?
Correct, yep.
And I think the concerns that we're hearing are kind of some concerns that we had when this whole process started. I was kind of going back and forth about keeping the city doing the billing, but I mean, I think in the long run, I think it needs to be done through Randy's. I think saving the city that 5 or so hours that they do the billing in the long run is going to save us some money. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So no one's hearing any complaints about performance or anything anymore, right?
No, and in looking at the contract too, I mean, if there is performance stuff, I mean, that is stuff that we can bring to the table and fix, you know, so that's all part of it, which is great. You know, it's not just saying, hey, we're stuck with it for 5 years and Randy's drops off, which I don't think they will. You know, I think they've done a great job and they should be in charge of billing. I mean, they have a department for it. That's their company's for, and having direct customer service with them rather than going through Jess and something like that. Like, I'd much rather prefer that too.
Right. We want to be a partner with the city. We know this is a transition, and we don't want cause any difficulty. So we're certainly willing to work with the residents and get through this smoothly.
More than fair in terms of dealing with our residents, so
You guys have any other questions?
I actually had one that someone brought up to me. Is there a fee for people who want an extra recycling bin?
No, not at all.
So if someone wants a second recycling bin, they can just have one dropped off?
We'll encourage them to go to the larger size. So currently, most people, I was surprised how many residents already have the larger 95 in the city and a second cart. You guys are great recyclers. So when they call and say, I'm not fitting all my recycling in, we will encourage them to first please try a 95 gallon instead of the expense of another cart. And if they say, you know what, that 65 just fits perfect, if I could have another one, not a problem. But it makes sense to only have one rather than the two. But if two is needed, we'll get it for them.
Well, having said all that, I would make a motion to go ahead and approve the contract amendment to extend contract and transfer billing customer services duty to Randy's.
I will second.
Further discussion on the motion? Sam?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
All vote yes, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
League of Minnesota Cities Insurance Trust Liability Coverage Waiver Form.
So that is, we do this every year. It is for the renewal. One of the items we need to renew our liability insurance for the year. The city does not waive the monetary limits for the municipal tort liability, which means we're locked in as to how much we pay. If we waive them, we have to take out additional insurance, so we've never waived them. So we just need a motion from the council that says the city does not waive the monetary limits on the liability.
could you say what the motion needs to be again?
I just need a motion, I think it's on page 13.
13.
And I have check says the member does not waive the monetary limits on municipal tort liability, so I just need a motion that pretty much states that.
I'll make a motion stating that the city does not waive the monetary limits on municipal tort liability established by the Minnesota statute 466.04.
I'll second.
Further discussion on the motion? All vote yes. Sam?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Discuss upcoming downtown improvement project assessments.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. As the 2021 downtown improvements project's been discussed and contemplated and moving forward, you know, one of the items that remains to be determined is whether or not assessments will be associated with the project. At a staff level, we did look at the assessments which were originally presented, which were entirely based on the city's existing assessment policy. And through conversations, we ran another scenario ultimately, which is included in your packets this evening, excluding the street reconstruction portion from that assessment. And the examples that are in the memo on page 2 ultimately reflect that excluding the street assessment as part, or the street costs as part of the assessment, ultimately reduces them by approximately half. The other thing that should be noted, and I believe Tammy can speak much more eloquently to this than I can, but depending on the types of financing that are pursued for the improvements or the bonds, if a minimum of 20% of the project cost is not assessed, there's a different type of funding mechanism that needs to be pursued by the city. And that's probably about as far as I'm going to get into the detail of that. So I'll let Tammy tell you more.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tammy Umdahl with Northland Securities, here to speak on the item with respect to the financing part of it. In order to issue bonds in Minnesota, a city doesn't have express authority to issue bonds. You have to have specific statutory authority. For the financing of street improvements, if a minimum of 20% of the project cost, as defined when you order the improvements, is not assessed to benefiting properties, then you're left with two options. You're left where it's reconstruction. In this case, staff and myself have spent time that it would meet the definition of street reconstruction under Minnesota 475, that you need to go through a process of holding a public hearing, and then 30 days after that public hearing is a reverse referendum period, that if 5% of the voters from the last municipal election were to petition, they could bring it to a referendum. So you have two choices if there's no assessments or less than 20%. To follow that street reconstruction process, which many cities do. Some cities, that's just their annual process that they do. Or the city would need to take it to a vote of the voters in order to have the authority to issue the bonds. But I would emphasize that street reconstruction authority, some cities do that every year. It's just how they finance their street improvements. Some cities use assessments on a regular basis that are above that 20%, and that's how they finance. So I'm here tonight to speak to that authority with respect to how you would finance the improvements.
Could you kind of just, I guess, with less technical words, kind of explain the whole being voted on again? Because I know that's going to be questioned by people. That I'll get 20 questions tomorrow asking me about how do we vote for this instead of just being assessed to us. So Could you just kind of explain that again, just on a easier language basis?
Sure. And Mayor, when you say vote, you're referring to the city council?
Yeah, well, referendum.
So the reverse referendum, how the process would work tonight, if the council says, you know what, we're not going to do assessments, or they're not going to be greater than 20%. And we've actually outlined a timeline, a process on how you would do this. So the city council then at some point, and that's not tonight, would call for a public hearing, and tentatively we have that happening on May 24th. So the city council would pass a resolution that on May 24th calling for a public hearing for a street reconstruction plan. A plan would be drafted, it's a couple pages. And then on June 9th, the city council would hold a public hearing and would consider, following that public hearing, you would pass a resolution. That resolution would set a maximum amount of bonds that you would issue. Starting with that date, 30 days later, so on July 14th, that the voters, your residents, would have the opportunity to petition the city to say, we want you to take this decision to issue bonds to the voters, to a vote, rather than the city council making that decision. I have never had a petition on a street reconstruction, ever. There's probably times that it happens, but typically the public is well informed of what the council's doing. They're given that opportunity to come to the hearing, ask questions, and then following those 30 days on July 14th, if you do not receive a petition, then the council has the authority to issue the bonds on your vote. And that's it. And some cities, so while this is new to Montrose, some cities annually, when they adopt their capital improvement plan, they hold a hearing for a street reconstruction, and then that 30 days goes out. It's just, this process is new to you. It is not a process that is not used on a regular basis in Minnesota. Mayor, does that help answer?
I think so, yes, thank you.
And that's only if the assessable percentage is under 20%?
That is correct. Under the state gives you authority that if the assessments are 20% or greater, you have to have a public hearing for the assessments, which you've been through that process before in order the improvements. You don't have to have a public hearing to issue the bonds.
Okay.
And I have a question based on what we talked about now, about taking the street reconstruction out. If we do the assessments just on the curb and gutter and the water and sewer, which is benefiting to the property owners, and take the street out, we're still within the 20%, correct?
Correct. We had talked about, and here, Jared, you can jump in, if the council defines the project through the feasibility report as inclusive of the utilities and the streets, and if 20% of that project cost, including utilities, is assessed, then you would have the authority to issue improvement bonds funded by assessments and then tax levy and utility revenue. Correct. But that definition of the project, and that's why I'm pointing to Jared, in the feasibility report when it orders, is what matters.
Yeah, and just for clarification, so basically, the assessment scenarios that are in the report, or that were in the memo this evening, the first scenario, which is the higher amounts, that meets the 20% assessment. The scenario beneath, or the less, approximately half, that won't satisfy the 20% of the total project cost. So ultimately, there's kind of two decisions here tonight. One is, are assessments going to be a part of this project? And if so, how much? Because if council elects to go with the lower scenario assessments, then the funding that Tammy's referring to will be applicable. If there's no assessments, it'll still be applicable. The only time that it would not be applicable is if the assessments as originally proposed, the higher numbers in the memo, were pursued. If that makes sense.
I thought by taking the street portion out of it and only having to use the sewer, water, storm, and the curb and gutter, I thought we did meet the 20%. Because like Tammy said, you just have to redefine it. Correct?
That is correct. I'm not going to speak to the numbers. I'll have Jared speak to that. But if the project is defined as inclusive of the utility improvements in the street, and if a minimum of that project as defined is assessed to benefiting property owners, then you have the authority to issue improvement bonds that would be supported by a combination of tax levy, utility revenues, and the assessments. But my understanding, as Jared outlined, that one of those scenarios meets that test and the other two do not.
So I think the other question was too, we do have a street reconstruction resolution, but a dollar amount that was done in the resolution was too low for this project. Can we just amend that resolution? Do we have to go through a public hearing to amend it?
Wendy, Mayor, I can speak to that. So I think that was back in 2017 it's a 5-year plan. So you have an adopted street reconstruction plan. The amount that was anticipated for this project in 2021, 2022 is less than what you need. So you have two options. You could go back and amend that plan to increase the amount, or what I have suggested to staff is to adopt a new plan, because either process is the same. If you're going to amend, you have to hold a public hearing, and you're subject to the 30-day reverse referendum. If you approve a new plan, it's just a new plan, but same public hearing and 30-day reverse referendum. Following the street reconstruction process, if you decide to do that and hold the hearing, it doesn't preclude you from your decision on assessments. If you go down that path, it gives you the authority to consider that, but it doesn't preclude you from determining what you're going to assess to benefiting property. I think staff's desire and Jared's is direction, so if you know sooner that you are going to assess at a rate that is above that 20%, then the city doesn't have to undertake that process. But I just want to point that out. If you decide to undertake it, it doesn't mean that you can't assess at a level that is at or above that 20%. It's just that now you've given yourself that flexibility to use that other tool if you need to.
So basically, we can hold a public hearing, do a new street reconstruction hearing, and have our new resolution, our plan, go through the 30-day period, because the hearing for assessments won't be for probably another year anyway, because the project's just going to start this year, so we have time yet before the assessment hearing would be. So it would be in their benefit now to just pass the street reconstruction plan. We already had one, but we need a new one because it needs to be modified. So pass a street reconstruction plan, go through the 30-day referendum so that that's all taken care of. And then when the time comes to decide whether or not you're going to do assessments, then this would all be done ahead of time.
That is correct. For the improvement hearing, you would have to, have your assessment hearing. I don't believe Jared that hasn't happened yet. So you'd have your assessment hearing, order the feasibility report, which would include the anticipated assessments, and you can postpone when you have the assessment hearing, when you actually vote and determine the amount of assessments that would be levied to the property owners. Does that answer your question, Wendy?
So basically what you're looking for is that we need to have a motion to have a new road reconstruction plan put together with a hearing, public hearing on, you said May 8th?
24th.
May 24th?
It would be on, if I get I said June 9th, that's when they get the docs. On June 14th would be the public hearing at your regular meeting.
And so the reconstruction plan would basically just outline that there is a potential, not that it's going to happen, but a potential for assessments, and it's just a plan of how we're going to potentially pay for the reconstruction of the roads, right?
Mayor, I would correct you in one thing. So that plan, the street reconstruction plan, will not speak to assessments. The fact that it doesn't speak to it doesn't preclude you from assessing. It's just, that's going down a path saying, we're going to consider the issuance of bonds under this authority, which would not require the levying of any assessments. But you still have the ability, following your assessment process, if you determine to levy assessments to pay for a portion of it. And tonight, I think staff is seeking your direction, probably by motion, so that they know how to proceed. But technically, statutorily, really the first time that action will be at your May 24th meeting, where you will consider the resolution calling for that public hearing. So if I understand, tonight was to get direction from the council on which path you want to proceed, and then the process will start with the formality of those actions at later dates.
So just to clarify one thing, ultimately what we're talking about tonight, and Tammy's right, we are looking for direction, but ultimately this provides an additional option for council, right? So if council's not completely convinced that the assessments are going to be part of this project at a level of 20% of the project cost, which is approximately $1.89 million, this provides an opportunity to continue to move the process forward and let you decide if assessments will number one, will happen as part of the project, or number two, to what level. It really provides flexibility for the council for your decision making.
Just gives a lot of options for.
Yes. Yep.
But doesn't guarantee or promise anything.
Right.
Wendy and Jessica, I want to confirm one thing as I'm looking at the calendar we talked about. The city can call for a public hearing without a resolution of the city council, and I believe you told me that's your typical process, that you don't take resolutions. So I've been saying that the council would approve that. I don't think, following your process, that is how you do it here in Montrose. So you're seeking that direction. Based upon that direction, then staff would proceed to notice for that public hearing, and the public hearing would be held on June 14th, as proposed. Am I correct in that?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So what would the motion need to say?
I would suggest that the motion would say to direct staff to prepare for a calling of a public hearing to be held on June 14th for a consideration of a street reconstruction plan.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to have the city plan for a June 14th public hearing to discuss a street reconstruction plan.
I'll second.
Does that covers it? Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Questions, concerns? Sam?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy.
So just lost my page.
I really appreciate you kind of dulling down some of the terms too, because sometimes we don't always have the extensive knowledge that you guys do, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Monthly disbursements.
So a number of years ago, the council gave us the authority to do disbursements, our monthly accounts payable disbursements twice a month. We do one around council meeting time, and then we do one towards the end of the month to catch the invoices we didn't have by council meeting. And that's been working just fine until the last few months. I don't know if many of you have noticed, but our mail service has gotten quite slow. I'm running into problems where our checks are not getting to the vendors in time, and I don't want to get late charges. We mailed a check on February 19th, and it got to one of our credit card companies on March 9th. So I'm asking to have the authority to actually run 3 disbursements throughout the month. So we would run one at council meeting time. A small one would probably be run in the middle of the month, and then the one at the end of the month like we normally do. If I run it too early in the month, like in the middle of the month, so if I do a council meeting and then one sometime in the middle of the month, then I don't have all of the invoices from like our insurance companies and stuff. So it's kind of a catch-22. I can't run it too early in the month because then I don't have everything. If I run it too late, the checks are getting there not on time. So I'm just asking to add an additional disbursement run, or whatever you want to call it, in the middle of the month that would catch all of the bills that need to be paid before the end of the month that aren't here at council meeting time. And it especially is during the time of month when we have, it's especially at the time of the months when we have really early council meetings. So February and March, we had council meetings on the 8th. So a lot of our stuff wasn't here yet by the time we did the council packets. And then if I wait till the end of the month, things end up getting late. So just looking for direction or looking for a motion to approve us to do a small run in the middle of the month to catch anything that gets missed at council meeting time.
So basically, instead of, say, the 15th and the 30th, it would be like the 1st, the 15th, and then the 29th or something like that. Just instead of 15 to 20 days in between, there'd be 10 to 12, right?
Right.
Is there a way to make some of those, instead of sending checks in the mail, is there a way for city to have just automatic payments for some of those?
Some of them we do, but some of the things we can't because we have our regular general checking account and we have our EDA checking account. So some bills end up being paid from both accounts. So it's almost impossible to set them up to have them come out of 2 different accounts.
Yep.
Some of the stuff we do have set up that way. All of our payroll taxes are set up to be directly taken out. But it's certain ones that I can't set up that way that we're having the issue with.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve 3 accounts payable disbursements per month when needed.
Second. Further discussion on the motion? Sam?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Tom?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Wright County Planning Commission Ordinance Amendment regarding solar energy farms and solar energy systems.
Wright County is just looking for any input from city council members, if you have them, regarding solar energy farms, and their amendment is going to add a minimum escrow deposit and surety amount to those solar farms and energy farms.
Yeah, I was at that meeting, and one of the issues was when solar farms pull out of a community, there's not enough funding left to clean everything up, so they do half of it and then walk away, and then the city's stuck with the rest of it. So basically what this does is it makes the solar farm people put an escrow deposit or a surety bond for up to 150% of what it actually costs to clear it up. So
I know this is something they've been looking at for quite a while, and a former mayor in St. Michael had said that they'd been dealing with this issue where they weren't even allowing solar farms in St. Michael because they didn't want to have to foot the bill to pay to remove any of the solar energy stuff.
But we have a moratorium in the county right now.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I know this has been, from what the members I talked to on the planning commission, they had said that it's a very hot button thing right now that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just looking for input or our, approval of that 150%?
Yep, just, if you look at the back page of it, it says the city, a township approves the request, or you disapprove, or you have comments.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Especially for us, because if we were to have to foot the bill for a new solar farm, if they only take half of it out, they're really, really expensive to get rid of, and don't recycle all that easy. So
you guys want to make a motion to approve that, and then I can just send this into the county?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the City of Montrose approve the request from Wright County regarding solar fields.
I'll second.
further discussion on the motion? Sam?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Nicole?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, I just had a couple things under other. Just wanted to remind everybody that we are having our town hall meeting this Wednesday, March 31st at 5 p.m. We will have room here for limited attendance. The Minnesota Department of Health will be attending virtually, and we have the link available on our website currently right now. It's on the home page, and if you scroll down under announcements and click on the town hall link, the link is on there for the virtual meeting. Just want to remind you guys about that. And then also, if you had any questions or input about the Loomis Homes redesign, make sure you get those to me so we can make sure they're prepared.
Will you be putting that link on social media?
Well, it doesn't.
Yeah, I suppose. Okay. Just curious.
I'll be here, but I'll be late.
It was in the paper as well and on the website, so.
Okay.
Anything else? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We'll second.
Sam?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Nicole?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We're adjourned.
They don't get none of that. They told me not to do any testing.